Finding a high quality sub $1,000 optic is not always easy, but I'm going to show you the DNT, the One, as it's called, 7-35 mil scope. I'm going to be using it so I can get back into some of my NRL 22 shooting and still do some of my bench rest shooting at my club matches. I think it's going to be a great scope for that, so let's go take a look. And this is it, the DNT, the One. Now, this is a 7-35. It is a mil scope, and that's going to let me obviously do a lot better at the NRL 22 matches that I'm going to attend. I've had an MOA scope that I have tried to do that with, and well, as anybody that shoots PRS or NRL knows, it's not a lot of fun trying to manage an MOA scope. But when I was shooting a lot more bench rest with my Voodoo, it just made sense to have an MOA scope. So I'm going back to that, and this seemed like a really great optic to give a shot because it's sub $1,000, it's $600 or $700 depending on where you buy it. It's a lot of scope, a fully illuminated reticle, not just aspects of the reticle. The entire reticle is lit, 6 different power functions. It's Japanese ED glass, which typically you're gonna find on much higher priced scopes. It has a 0 stop on it. It has big, chunky turrets on it. Really, listen, really nice clicks on it. They're very positive, and I'm also gonna give it a box test. We're gonna see how those track, because obviously one of the concerns when it comes to lower priced scopes is they're not gonna track the way you want them to. So I will run it through a box test here, and we're gonna see what that looks like. I'm also gonna take it out to, roughly 200, 215 yards and see how it looks there. As far as what's included in the package, you do get your kind of standard bikini covers. I'm not a huge fan of these, but at the end of the day, at least it comes with some kind of a cover. I do prefer either some kind of a flip up or just a standard cap. I don't know what it is about bikinis, but I've just never been a fan of having them on a scope. I just like having a nice cap on each end, but the bikini does the job. It does have a little sticker and a wipe cloth and some of the instructions, which I have to admit are very simple and very easy to understand when it comes to setting the 0 stop especially. And then one other aspect that it comes with, and it's gonna be a little bit hard to see here, but it has this little wedge, and the wedge is going to go right here on the power knob or power dial. And that's going to give you a little bit of a, if you want a little pressure on your thumb to push it left or right, it's going to make it a little bit faster. I'm a big fan of those. I use those on my other scopes for F-class, and I just like having the ability to just really make a quick adjustment without having to, grab the whole dial and move it. As far as the eyepiece goes, setting it's just a standard screw in, screw out. There's no kind of setting on it that's going to let you torque it down. So with a scope like this, once you have your eyepiece set, you do want to make sure that you note it somehow. I am a fan of using like a silver marker to make a line on where I have it, and I might even mark on the inside of this one where the line hits the actual barrel of the scope. And that's just so that you have a nice, easy reference to come back to. As it stands, there's no lines on the eyepiece of any kind to help you have a reference on it. But one thing that I will say, I don't want to say it's a negative, but one thing that I did notice when I was trying to use some of my other scope mounts is that it does have this nitrogen purge tube kind of coming out the bottom. And this is reminiscent of some other scopes that you may have seen where they have this, it's for purging the nitrogen, and it just gets in the way is the problem. Now, I tried mounting these in my normal F-class rings. I had an extra set sitting around. I tried mounting them in there, and unfortunately that nitrogen, because I'm sitting lower, that purged valve or purge tube won't let the scope sit level, so it unfortunately canted a bit. Now, I did talk to DNT, and they do have coming very soon these rings, which I have to say, these are some really nice rings. They're well made, they're well machined. I will be curious to see how they function over the long term, but they do appear to be nicely CNC'd, and they are keyed, so you do know that you've got the right ring sets on each side. And then they do give you the torque settings so that you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 in the order that they basically tell you, which is going to be first, middle, inside out, like that, which is pretty standard. It is a one piece, which I'm a big fan of. And obviously, if you're using two-piece rings, that purge tube isn't going to be a big deal. When it comes to the elevation on here, you have a maximum of 30 mils of vertical adjustment, or I think it's like 105 or 100. It's just over 100 minutes if you're thinking in terms of minutes, if you have the minute version of this. And then the windage is going to be half of that, so 15 mils or just over 50 minutes if you have the MOA version of this. And how does that compare? Well, it's right on par with some of the big boys out there in terms of the max adjustment that you're going to have for your elevation. And I think that is definitely more than enough for most people's usage. If you find that you are in a situation where you're shooting extended distances and it's not enough elevation, you're probably going to be going to some kind of an MOA base of some kind or scope rings. You can get a lot of different one-piece mounts that are going to have 20 or 30 minutes baked into them, or you can even look at some of the actual turret adjuster. They're kind of like a turret adjustable one-piece rings out there, and I mean you can do like ELR 22 with that kind of stuff. So a lot of possibilities out there. I will just caution you that some of the lower mounts, if you like shooting something that's like a 1.25 or a 1.15 type ring, your tube may not clear it. So just keep that in mind. So what's our goal with this? Well, realistically, I want a scope that's clear. I want to be able to dial it to the minimum power, the maximum power, get real good clarity either way. I want to have good knobs that track properly, and I want the zero stop to actually work. I will say I've had bad experiences with some other zero stops where they tend to walk a little bit because of how the cap is positioned kind of in that zero stop position. And if you crank it back and forth too much, you can actually get those turrets to walk. And while it's really not a big deal, I mean, maybe it walks, a mil or, something like that, or, half a minute, whatever it is. I mean, you always know where your bottom is at that point, but it is annoying and I don't trust it at that point, which is really what the problem is. It's not about finding zero, it's about trusting that your dial is going to go where you want it to. So we will see how that functions. I'm also going to show you how it compares at the same powers to some of my other scopes that I have during the day, and then also we're going to light up the illuminated reticle, and I'll show you what that looks like through the scope, and then we'll just go shoot some steel and we'll have some fun. So let me get this thing mounted up, and we're going to head out to the range and we're going to see how it works. Now that we have the top half of the rings off, I do like to give them a wipe down with some alcohol just to get any grease off of them or any oil that I might have on my fingers. And another thing that I do ever since SHOT Show this last year, after talking to Hawk and Spur, I 100% wet mount all of my ring setups, which is going to happen when I put it on the gun. But I also use a little bit of rosin, liquid rosin, on all of my mounts. And I do need to make sure this alcohol dries. And so what we've got here is, liquid rosin, and I just put a little bit on the inside. It doesn't take much, but I do like this, and he recommended doing it. And I have found that it just gives me a little extra confidence on my scopes. And then let me get the top half of the rings here. Smells a little bit like a fir tree here. Okay, it doesn't take much. I just do a very light film on it. And here we go. We are going to get this set in here, and on a one-piece mount, I typically am going to put the turrets halfway between the bases here, and that just gives maximum room on each side of the erector setup. If you mount a scope too close, with the rings too close to the setups here where the erectors are, you can actually end up crushing it and impacting the ability to have an accurate dial, and that I've seen that happen where people say, oh, I've got a problem, and sure enough it is because they are doing like they're doing some crazy stuff with their rings where maybe they're trying to push the scope back, and it just isn't good. Let's just put it that way. Now we obviously don't want to torque these down all the way because we need to make sure the scope is level, and that means lining up the reticle with a plumb bob. Now in my garage I now have a small, very thin, like a landscaping line that's hanging on my wall across from me. All right, there we go. So I've got equal room on each side of the erector. Everything is level in here. And now I want to go ahead and torque this down. On their rings, they actually tell you 25 inch-pounds, and then the base I think was 45. I'll double check here. So we'll throw this on the gun and we will head out to the range. We are at 50 yards here. You can see my target is just out in front. And I think I've got it pretty close, but we are going to see. I'm sure I still have to make a little bit of an adjustment. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to show you how the zero stop worked on this. So we're just going to put this dead center, and we're just going to see where this hits. Okay, I think it was right there. It should be that one right there, but just to double check, since I'm outside the white, we're going to come, I'm just going to go up another mil, which will put it a little bit off. Yep, so that was definitely my hit. So now this is a great example of what's happening. I am at 0, and I can't go any further because the zero stop is set. And on top, there are 2 red screws. You're going to loosen those, okay? And it is a little bit harder because I have my camera on here. But now I can dial down even more. Well, I need to loosen it just a little bit more. Let me take it out so that I can properly undo this. There we go. So now that we've loosened those 2 red screws, we're going to go ahead and dial what we need. And I need to undo a little bit more of that. Go ahead and hold center here. That's pretty close. All right, we're through the same hole there. So that is set up for 50 yards. So now we need to adjust this so that the zero stop is in effect. First thing we want to do is go ahead and make sure that these are loose enough. And then we want to undo the 3 silver screws that are on here. And that is to loosen the turret cap itself, so that we can set it to 0. So now we can bring it over to 0, and we're going to tighten it down. So we're tightening down the silver. And now that we have the turret cap attached where 0 is, we want to go ahead and tighten down the forward-facing red screw first. So we're just going to snug that down. It doesn't have to be super tight. And then we're going to just, whatever amount of tension is in this top screw, we're just going to send it down. And again, it doesn't need to be, hammered or torqued down. So now we have a good zero stop right here, and it's going to stop every time for us. And then obviously the windage is just, there's no zero stop on that, so we just need to loosen the screws here. Let's get this set to 0. And now we have a properly set 50-yard 0, which is what we want. Now that we have our scope sighted in, zeroed, we got the zero stop on, It's ready to do a box test. So what I've done, there's 2 pieces of paper out there. Each have a single black X in the bottom right corner. And the reason is we're going to use that as our point of aim. And then we are going to go up 4 mils, over 4 mils, down 4 mils, back over, and we're going to walk it around. And we're going to do the test twice. So I have 2 magazines here, and we are using Lapua Center X. And the reason that I like doing that is one test just is never enough. I figure if we're going to do it once, it's easy enough to do it twice. And it would be nice to see a little bit of consistency between the two as we go. And especially with 22 ammo, there's always the chance of a flyer or something weird happening. So by doing it twice, I think you're going to get a better gauge of what's happening. To be honest, if I was using my centerfire rifle, I would only do it once because that's enough for me with how the gun shoots. But 22, there's just enough unpredictability that I think twice around is going to be really good for us. So first target, we're going to shoot. Let's go ahead and get on the left target here. Okay. And we are at 0 and 0, starting into the bottom right corner. See, like that. That shouldn't have happened. 4. I will say these knobs are really gritty, like you can feel them. They snap, snap, snap. And even from here, I'm able to read really well into the sun what the holds are, or what the mills are, rather. You know what? I only put 9 rounds in, so let's just keep going. So we went up. We're on 0 and up. Okay. Yeah, we'll just shoot 2 full mags each time here. That should be everything for that one. So let me get loaded up and we will shoot the other side. We got 20 rounds this time, so that'll be 5 in each target. Let's get back to 0, 0. And let's move over. All right, here we go. 0, 0. And you might see me checking periodically, and that's okay. Like, if you aren't sure, it's better to check as you're testing than to have a test go bad. Really nice knobs on this thing, though. I have to say, I mean, they feel great. That should be everything. Oh, no. Let's come back over here. And this will be our last one. Well, if I back out a little bit, you can see, I mean, that was really good. So I will tell you that I made just a little bit of a tuner change just to tighten the group up a little bit because I noticed it was just getting a little different out here temperature-wise. You can see up here, there's 2 steel targets that are painted white. They are under cover, under trees. It is pretty dark up there. We are on the widest setting right now, and I feel like I have a really good view, even with my target cam on there, my scope cam. I think you're gonna see that it's really good looking. Now, it's easy to say that when it's at 7 power. I'm used to coming up 7 minutes from 50 to 100, so that would be 2, and we're back to 0. Let's see what we can do here. Okay. Now we're going to go up to 35. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. I think I'm hitting down there. Yeah. Yeah, it's not bad. Now, just for fun, let's see. There's the reticle, lit reticle. Okay, so with the lit reticle on. All right, well, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Here we have all 3 scopes at 7 power. Now, the March, for whatever reason, because of how I had to mount it at the range with the trigger cam, it got a little out of focus at 7 power, but I think in terms of color clarity, you can get a good idea of how these 3 scopes look. And the DNT, honestly, did a really good job at 7 power. Now, I will fully admit it is a lot easier for most scopes to look good at a lower power, but I think it's crisp, it's clean, it would be easy to shoot at 7. But let's go ahead and bump them up to 25 power now and compare what they look like. And here we have it at 25 power. And the loophole actually started showing purple fringing around the white, whereas the DNT did not, and neither does the Magesta. And we're going to zoom in the DNT a little bit and just take it to full 35 power just to show you what it looks like. But I think it really shows how good this scope can look. And especially for the price point, it really is a great scope when you compare it to some of these other multi-$1,000 scopes. Lastly, I just want to show some footage from a 22 match that I shot with the scope. And this was in some pretty bad weather. It was raining. You can see the backer board is pretty wet. And this is at 100 yards. And, you know, I was pretty impressed with how it worked. It was bright. I was able to see really well. This is at 35 power. You can see here, this is that same target board, and this is the actual target we were shooting. Again, the target is just soaking wet, but I was still able to read it just fine with the scope. And then we went to a fun shoot, and these are little foam stickers that the match director put on the board. And we had to shoot them. And I think, again, they were really easy to pick up and read with the scope at 35 power. I have to admit, using the mill reticle, I actually enjoyed it. I found it bright and crisp and easy to get onto my targets. And, you know, overall, it was just really fun for shooting this match with, and I'm going to keep using it. We are back from the ranges, and I'm going to try to keep this simple for the wrap-up. The 215-yard test, I think that was a really great example showing a couple different price level scopes all the way from about $4,500, $4,600 down to obviously the $700 price range of the DNT1. Then we had the 50-yard box test, and just to sort of show you what happened on that box test, I was really happy with it. If you look here, you'll see that as we worked our way around, everything stayed where it should. Now with a 22, we're always going to have a little bit of variation, especially when it is I think this is like a $600 something off the shelf rifle. And you know, it's just to be expected. It's not some $4,000 voodoo. The second box test we did was equally good, and everything measured out real good. I actually got a measuring tape out and we measured out the boxes, and they were all within half an inch of each other, which for a 22 is going to be more than enough for my needs. And I think if I had it on a higher quality, more bench rest style 22, that box test would actually tighten up and get even more accurate. So that was encouraging to see that a sub $1,000 scope, especially with a zero set and everything else that it does, is going to track as well as it does. If it goes up, it's going to go up, and if I go down, it's going to go down. And that is really one of the most important things when we look at quality optics. The glass was great. It's Japanese ED glass, which you do not see on a lot of sub $1,000 scopes. And when we were at the longer distance, everything was great. It was crisp, it was clear. And at the shorter distance, we shot in a very tough condition where the light was coming in almost at a head, and that can be very tough for some scopes. And this fared very well. In fact, as good as it looks through the trigger cam, I will tell you that it looks even better in person, simply because the trigger cam does induce a little bit of mirroring with the way the prism is when light is coming in directly at the head. But other than that, it's a great scope to consider if you're looking for something in the sub $1,000 market. Is it going to replace your $3,000-$4,000 Night Forces and Vortexes and Marches? No, probably not. But if you're looking for a budget-minded scope that can get the job done and be really effective, I think this is a great one to take a look at. With that, I hope you get a chance to go out and shoot, have some fun. As always, I'm here to help everybody shoot better. Have a good one. We will talk later.